Okay, welcome everyone. I am so excited for this call. You guys earned this call. We recruited 70 coaches the month of March, and so that's how we were able to get this call. We have Kim Carver here. He is the executive director of Field Development and Training. And AKA the Coach Whisperer. Everyone knows who he is. He's created the first 30. He's created the Vital Process. He's created so many great things that we use in the back office. He's the man. So with that said, I'll let you get started, Kim, and I'll put myself on mute because it's noisy here.
You're good. You're good. Can you hear me okay? Oh my gosh, I just went and got a haircut and it is not looking good. I apologize that all of you got me fresh from the haircut place. So I'm excited to be here. Well, Sydney came in the other day and she said, hey, so you remember when we talked about, that having you on a call for the team, the contest we were running, and the team that won got a call, that we were going to raffle you off. She goes, a call with you off. I said, okay, yeah, or not raffle me off. And the winner was going to get it. And she said, yeah. I said, yeah. And she goes, well, my team won. And I was like, so what do they get? She's like, well, it's a call with you. I was like, that's winning. So I don't know what else the prizes were, you guys, but I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to share a few minutes here with you. And I was talking to Sydney a little bit before the call, kind of get some context around this group right here. And look, here's the deal. You guys this is an elite push group, right? And this elite push group is well, let me say this. These groups tend to really do one of two things. They either really tend to really focus you in on what you're trying to do. They really tend to kind of clear out some of the clutter and focus you on what you're trying to do, or they overwhelm you so much that you almost feel like you can't do it. So I want to talk to you guys today specifically about a couple things I think will help you, but I want to talk to you about kind of an overarching message about what you're doing. I want you to keep context around the things that you guys are doing right now because it's important. It's really important. One of the jobs that a leader has is their job is to bring success closer to their team. And what I mean by that is a lot of the people on your team, elite and premier and stuff, that's stuff that happens to other people, right? That's something that they see from afar. But when all of a sudden the leader makes the decision and starts aligning their efforts and their resources around that, and when that achievement happens, that success now comes closer. And what that does for the team is it increases their vision of what they think is possible for themselves. That's one of the hard things about leadership sometimes, you guys. And I know there's some of you on this call that are probably struggling seeing yourselves as a leader and all that other stuff, and I guess that's a topic for another call. But I want you to know that regardless, the importance of what you're doing here for yourself, for your business, the growth that's going to happen throughout this, I hope that you will keep an eye on the big picture and understand just how important this is, and how much you matter as a coach, how much what you do matters as a coach. As a lead, we tend to really focus on, because we have to, right, on numbers and understanding things, especially if you're going for the first time, understanding how all that works. And it's hard not to get caught. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be aware of it. But what I am saying is that what we should focus on is establishing a high watermark for ourselves and our business in terms of the impact we've had. And we measure that impact with these elite numbers, these elite points, and all of that. But just because you're going for elite doesn't remove the purpose from your business. Just because you're going for elite doesn't change the impact that you have on your business. And honestly, just because you're going for elite, all the customers and the people that are waiting for you to reach out to them and the coaches that wait, for them, it's still about helping them. And we can't forget that. So, with that being said, I want to start real quick. I'm going to share my screen here because it'll be a lot better to look at than my bad haircut. Okay. Can you guys see it? Okay, let me make sure it comes up. It's just a big white thing that says Sydney's team call. Can you guys see that? Okay, give me a thumbs up if you can. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to walk through something here with you real quick. I want to start it with an analogy, kind of going along this theme of going for elite. And I want to do it in context of running a marathon. Now, I know when you look at me, you think immediately, marathon runner. I'm built like a marathon runner. I look like a marathon runner. I know it screams it, okay? But just in case you didn't see that, I actually have run 4 marathons in my life. and each one of them have had really cool lessons for me. But I want to kind of give the analogy or tie running a marathon real quick into going for elite. Okay, so when I'm running a marathon, one of the things I learned after my very first marathon is that for me, because I don't really run marathons all the time, there really has to be a reason behind why I want to run that marathon. If I don't have a purpose behind why I want to run, it doesn't matter. So before the race, on the left-hand side of that your screen right there, before the race, I got to know why. Okay? The first marathon I was running to try to raise funds for my wife and I to have a procedure to have more kids. The second time I ran is because my wife had it as a bucket list item and she needed my support. The third time I ran a marathon was because Doug Moss, who a lot of you know, came into my office and he said, I want to run this marathon and I need some help. Will you run with me? Okay, I'm going to run for my friend. And then the fourth time I ran the marathon was in New York City. And the reason why I ran it was because I was 40 years old. And I wanted to show myself that even at 40, I could do hard things. And the point is, I have to start knowing what my why is with every race. And then I have to train. And when I'm training, I'm thinking about that why. And because training sucks. The worst part of marathon is the freaking training. I mean, you wake up and you run for freaking who knows how many miles. And you're like, why am I doing this? I'm by myself. I'm sticking Gatorade in the bushes. I'm trying to not die as I'm running out here. And every Saturday for 4 months, I'm running, right? And so you have to have a real strong why as you're doing the training. Before the race comes, then, part of that training is I've got to know the route. I made this mistake in my first marathon. Some of you heard that story, but I didn't know the route. So ever since then, I knew I had to know what the route was. How's it going to be? Is it hilly? Is it flat? At what point, if it's like the one I ran with Doug was here right by our office, so I could go drive it so I could see where the hills were and I could kind of get a feel for what it looked like. And then I would create a plan around it. And so I would know going into every marathon, I would know, like, for example, the one I did with Doug here in Utah, I knew that right at the beginning, I could kind of pick up the pace a little bit because it was a gradual decline. And then I was going to have a series of hills. And if I was an idiot, I would keep trying to run fast up those hills. But if I knew I needed to throttle back and my pace was going to slow down, but that was going to be okay because then on the back side, there was more downhills, et cetera, et cetera. When I ran New York, I knew that where the hills were going to be, and I knew how to pace myself and what those needed to look like. And I kind of create a plan for what happened. And I remember standing at the starting line with all these people and all the noise and all the craziness of the New York City Marathon. And I remember just going over my plan in my mind for the race. Through Brooklyn, here's this. When I get to Queens, I have to go over the bridge, it's this. When I get under Manhattan, it's this. And I just was repeating in my brain what the plan was so that when the gun went off, I could start, okay? And the start's really important because everything to the left-hand side, when you're just prepping for a race, it's not actually the race. Right? People will applaud you. Oh my gosh, you're doing a marathon. You get to walk around the office. You're like, yeah, I'm doing a marathon. I'm training and all that. And everyone thinks it's cool, right? But that's not the race. The race hasn't started yet. So you got to get up to the freaking line, put your toes, on the line and go, right? So start the race. And as I'm starting the race, one of the things that inevitably happens is headwinds, obstacles, something comes up, right? The wind's blowing, it's a stormy day, there's a lot of people, I trip, I go the wrong way, which happened in my first one. That's a whole other story, right? There's all these there's things that happen along the way that you didn't plan for, that you didn't take into account, that you have to adjust. All of a sudden, your perfect plan is like getting hole shot in all over the place. And you have to understand that that's going to happen when you're running that race, because that way, when it happens, you don't like lose it, right? Okay, this is happening, oh my gosh, and you just build that ability to be nimble into your plan, right? And then as I do that, I always give myself permission to regroup and readjust if I need to. If I'm looking at it, like for example, the New York City Marathon came and I did not expect it to be as cold as it would. I was freezing, okay? And the beginning of the race, I got caught, and there was 20,000 people that started with my group, and I got caught in this, and I couldn't move as fast as I wanted to, and just little things like that happened. And so the goals that I had set for myself, about a third of the way through, I had to kind of readjust, and then I did it again with about 5 miles left to go, based on the situations and the headwinds that were happening and the realities of the situation. But the thing was, and the reason why that's important is because I always want to own my race. I always want to own that race. That's a mentality that I learned when you run these long races, is you have to own the race. If you give yourself up to the course, if you give yourself up to the other people, if you give yourself up to the runners around there, then it is impossible. It is so hard, and it's not fun. It sucks, okay? But when you can own it, when you're running a plan, even if you have to adjust the plan, when you can own that race, it's a lot better. And then as we're going through that, you learn to see progress in the process of it, right? Each step, you give yourself permission. I give myself permission when I'm running the race to celebrate wins, right? To look for the little things that happen. Maybe it's a little bit quicker mile pace than I expected on that particular section. Or maybe it's, hey, I went through the Gatorade line and I only had 3 cups this time instead of 7 like I usually do. I'm really, really proud of myself for that, right? Or maybe it was someone cut in front of me and I didn't cuss at him. I mean, whatever the little wins happen to be right in the ways, but I give myself permission to see progress in the process that I'm making, right? And the reason why that's important is because for me, inevitably, mile 18 happens. And let me tell you what happens at mile 18. I know it's going to happen at the start of every race, and maybe it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I don't think it is. But this is what happens at mile 18. Mile 18 comes, and for me, some people call it the wall, some people call it, for me, I don't care what it is, I just know that it sucks. Call it what you want to call it. So I'm being really direct with you guys. I'm saying unprofessional words like sucks a lot, but I figure you guys work with Sydney, so you're used to this. Anyway, so when I get to mile 18, I think it's because I've now been running for over 3 hours, and I'm still not in the 20s. Okay, you know, marathon's 26 miles. So you've been running forever and you're still in the teens and you're like, this is like never going to end. Like, this is never going to end. And crazy crap goes through your mind. You're like, I mean, when I hits me, I'm just like, you know what? I'm done. Like, this is stupid. Like, I'm going to walk. I'm just going to call my wife. I'm going to just quit. It's not a big deal. No one cares. No, who cares if I quit? Everyone will tell me I tried hard. I mean, all these things all these reasons go through my mind to quit because I'm tired. I'm fatigued. I've been pushing myself longer than anyone else in my life that I know in my family that has ever run that far, right? All these things. But I know it's coming. And when that comes, so this is how I prepare myself for mile 18. I go back to why I'm running. Why am I running? What's the purpose behind what I'm doing? I go back to the progress that I made in that race, and I celebrate some of those progresses. I remind myself of those wins. I do anything I can do to keep my head in the game, to keep myself to get through that wall, okay? And then finally, I always make sure that last mile, I finish strong. I try to leave it all out on the course when I'm running. And sometimes it's not very fast, but I don't want to finish the race and feel like, man, I probably could have pushed myself a little bit harder. So I try to finish that last mile strong. Now, what does that have to do with you and elite? Well, honestly, you guys, for me, it's almost, I'm sure you guys, as we were talking through this, we're seeing the parallels here, right? But you start as elite before in 2016, before we got this year, right? We talked about, why do I want to become elite? And you might, if you haven't done this, you need to kind of refresh on this. Why do you want to become elite? What's the route? What are the numbers? What are the things I need to get to, okay? When I look at the year, when I've got team cups coming on and I've got summits coming on and I know about product launches and the things that are coming through, what's the route that I've got and how am I going to strategize? And I know you might be sitting there going, man, that seems like a pain in the butt. It's not. It really isn't. You have to take the time to do it, but it'll be totally worth it to know the route. And then you create a plan. And then once you've got that plan, now boom, we're into this year and you've got to start running. And obviously you're running because you're here. Okay, you guys had an amazing, as a team, you guys, 70-something people got started with you guys. I mean, you guys are clearly running. And some of you are doing great. The wind's at your back. You're not really feeling any headwinds. Awesome. That's going to be great. I hope it stays that way for as long as possible. But some of you are also facing headwinds, right? Unexpected things that are happening. People you counted on to show up that aren't showing up right now. You can't figure out how to motivate people. You got people who won't respond to invites. All those headwinds that come in, and it starts to erode the excitement you had when you said, I'm going to go for elite. And what you've got to do is understand that happens. That the headwinds happen. So if I need to regroup or readjust if necessary, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay, because you've got to own your race. You've got to own your elite. It's not, you can't give it up to your challenger. You can't give it up to your coaches. You can't give it up to Sydney. No one else can control this but you. Okay, you've got to own that race. And then as you're going through this year, you guys, You've got to make sure you're seeing the progress that you're making. The hard thing with long-term goals, just like the hard thing with running a long race like a marathon, is the wins can get lost in the monotony of the daily grind, if that makes sense. You've got to make sure that you celebrate those wins for yourself. You need that fuel. You need that energy. No win is too small. No chance of looking and seeing the progress you're making is too small. So get in the habit of doing that. Do it for each other. Do it for yourself. See the progress that you're making. I promise the time will come. If you work this whole year, you'll look back on us and you'll see the big strides in the context and the power that they are. But in the middle of the race, you don't have that perspective yet. And it'll come, but you don't have it yet. So get in the habit of looking for those little wins that you can celebrate, those things you can. And by the way, if you get a big milestone, a big rank advancement, you hit 5 stars, holy crap, that's a huge time to celebrate that progress. And at some point, you're going to hit mile 18. I don't know when it's going to hit for you. Some of you is probably maybe right now. Some of you it might be, in the middle of the doldrums of summer, okay, right before summit. And for some of you, it might be this fall. But at some point, everyone's going to hit mile 18. And mile 18 is when you're going to be this close to just walking off the course, this close to throwing your hands up and saying, you know what, screw it. I don't care. Doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter to me. All those crazy thoughts that I have when I'm just spent 3+ hours running away, so I'm so close to the finish line, I find every excuse not to, okay? You'll get that. And you have to prepare yourself right now, make the decision that when that comes, I'm not going to walk off the course. If you're sitting there going, there's no way I can make it right now. There's no way I can do this. The points aren't working this. And all those headwinds and people aren't listening. And I was on a 3-star and I was almost a 5-star. And now I'm just a diamond because these 2 coaches relocated to Mars and all this kind of stuff that comes through, right? You make that decision to keep going right now. So when that happens, you're going to finish that race. You're going to finish strong, okay? Because even if you don't reach elite, the fact that you kept running that race, okay, will make you better. The fact that that's the kind of person, the kind of coach that you're going to want to be will make you better. And for a lot of you, you will get elite. For a lot of you, you'll do that, okay? So remember that. Now, typically a lot of coaches that are in the place where you're at right now, one of the biggest frustrations that you're facing is a big word that we use called duplication, right? That really outside of this, our little industry jargon means other things, okay? But duplication, right? And so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about duplication for just a second, because for you as coaches, trying to help other people move into leadership, be better at leading themselves, take on more role can be very difficult. It can be very frustrating because you can't control it. So what I'm going to give you permission to do right now is to stop trying to control it. Duplication isn't about control, okay? Duplication is about a couple things I'm going to teach you right now. It's about systems and about helping people remember and remember why they do what they do and learn how to lead themselves effectively through goals and controllable actions, okay? I'm sure Sydney's probably talked to you a little bit about this kind of stuff, all right? But duplication, you can't control other people. So stop trying. Stop wasting energy at it. It's worthless. It's misspent energy. Okay? Focus on the things that you can control. One of the things you can't control are systems. Okay? And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. When we talk about duplication, a long time ago somebody explained this to me, and it's always kind of stuck with me. Sometimes when we think about duplication, what we think about is us and our personally sponsored coaches. Right? I've got to duplicate with my personally sponsored coach. And in reality, that's not true. That's a part of it, but duplication takes 3 people, okay? Duplication, if you want to know if you're duplicating effectively, don't look at your PS coach, look at their coaches. What are their coaches doing? Because what their coaches are doing will tell you how well they're learning from you what to do, if that makes sense. And so it's a really good, I'm not saying go work with their coaches. I'm saying watch what they're doing with their coaches, look and see what their coaches are doing, and that will give you a great indication on how to support your PS coaches, okay? Now, I know for some of you, you're like, man, I would love my PS coaches to enroll more coaches. Okay, we'll get to that, but you see what I'm saying. It works the same with customers as well. So when we talk about duplication, okay, I want to point out, where'd my thing go? Okay, I took the slide off here. Let me talk about duplication real quick. I want you guys to remember this phrase right here. Okay, because this will be for some of you initially, it will be very kind of confusing, but when you get it, it will be very enlightening to you and it will be very empowering to you. You don't duplicate people. You duplicate systems. Okay? You don't duplicate people. That's called cloning. I don't know if that's even legal. Okay? But what you do is you duplicate systems. Okay? Now, why that's important? Okay? Well, because we get caught up a lot of times in trying to be like other people. The whole comparison thing, this and that, and part of that is if I can duplicate who they, the misunderstandings, if I can duplicate who they are, and what they say and their personality, then maybe I'll be successful. And you know, in this business, that's not it. It's about being authentic, right? So then what do I duplicate? Well, you duplicate systems. You let the people bring their own personalities and talents to bear, but you give them the skeleton of systems that they can build around. Now, some of you don't know what that is, so let me walk through that real quick for you. Systems, really, in my mind, this is a quick definition I just threw up here. I don't know if it's actually what a dictionary would say, but in this context, this is what I mean. It's a methodical approach to something designed to produce a specific result. Okay. What a system, so the breakdown of this is a methodical approach just basically means it's step by step. It's like, these are the things we do. It's this and this and this. It's defined. It's clearly understood. In some cases, it's sequential, but it's a specific method or approach to doing something that should produce a desired or a specific outcome. Okay. What a system should do is they should simplify. And what I mean by simplify is they should focus them on the most, focus them in the right direction. It should help cut through the noise. And the difference between that is it should help set priorities. So they help focus, they help set priorities on actions. Okay, I could do 100 things. I should probably only do 3. Okay, or those 3 things are the most important. Okay, and they should produce results. All right, so Sydney talked in the beginning about the vital process. One of the things that I think that when we talk about the vital process, we talk about how it's the process that somebody builds the belief system and experience to really become an effective coach. And I think that's very, very true. But how it does that is because it's very systematic. And as a coach, as right now, as you're talking about duplication, one of the things that I would really focus on, okay, is making sure I've got a system in place for each step of the vital process. And I'll explain that in just a sec what I mean, okay? But I want to ask yourself, do I have a methodical, systematic approach? And then, but that doesn't imply it has to be super complicated, you guys. It could be a one-pager, okay? It could be something you cover in a Getting Started Right call with your coaches. But do I have a system in place for each step of the vital process that I can teach and expect my coaches to then duplicate and teach to their teams, all right? When you think about the vital process, it's really, I don't know if you guys have heard of a sales funnel, right? A sales funnel, this is some of those big words that if you know what it is, it makes sense. And if you don't, you're like, oh yeah, I know what that means. But inside you're like, I don't know what that means and I feel stupid. So let me tell you what it is just in case you don't know what a sales funnel is, okay? Because I was one of those guys who didn't know what it was for a long time and I'm in sales until finally one day I was like, I need to go look this up because people talk about it and they sound smart. So we'll all get on the same page. So a sales funnel basically is, you guys all know how a funnel is shaped like a V, right? And at the beginning of a sales funnel is the biggest end, right? And that's where all the people come in. And then each step that you go through in the funnel, the size gets smaller and smaller because it usually represents an escalating level of commitment, if you will. And some people will just stop. They'll get to be where they're at or they won't want to take that next step. The vital process, you guys, is really a sales funnel for effective coaches, if you think about it this way. So look at this diagram right here, okay? There really are, and I know expanding your network isn't the vital process. It should be. So since this is my training, I'm going to put it right here on this, okay? You can tell Michael if you want. Michael and Jeff, if they get mad at me, then I'll argue again with them about it. But expanding your network, right? What am I doing to expand my network? What are the things I'm doing to get people just exposed to who I am? Then I do the inviting, right? That's the getting clients started step of the vital process. The next step of the vital process is getting people results. We know that our systematic approach to that are challenge groups. Then we have transitioning to coaches, okay, which is onboarding. And then mentoring and developing coaches, that's the mentorship. Here's the reason why I show this to you, okay? I'm pointing to my screen over here because that's where it is for me. Those first 4 steps, prospecting, inviting, challenge groups, and onboarding. Those are the core systems of any coaching business. So if you're here and you're going, okay, well, I have systems, but I don't know what a system is. I think I have a system. I don't know what a system is. If we were working together, this is what when we would talk, this is what I would do. I would always want to know, how do you teach coaches to expand their network, to prospect, to add more eyeballs to their message? What's the approach that you teach them to do that? Okay, that's a key system. Then I'd want to know, how do you teach them to invite? What's the inviting process that you walk them through? Okay. Then I'd want to know how you're running your challenge groups. And I know some people are like, oh, challenge groups, and they kind of get lazy with challenge groups, and it just drives me crazy, you guys. That is a core business system. You've got to have that sucker so dialed in, and it's given great results for people, because you helping your coaches do that, man, that is where everything hinges on that middle one, in my opinion. Now we go then into coach onboarding. Now, those first 4 steps are the most core systems that you've got. So do you have business systems in place to do that? Now, from a company standpoint, now you'll start to get some context behind why we do what we do, or why I do what I do, right? If you think about it, we've got our onboarding system that we put in place for you to use or to build off of is First 30. Okay? The First 30 is an onboarding system, where it's step-by-step, it's methodical, this leads to this does this, and that's the step-by-step process that we go through. Throwing them into Coach Basics, which is in the mentorship, that's the system down for the last step in the funnel. Going up the funnel now from their challenge groups, that's the system for the company in that regard. Then we go into inviting. Now this is where it gets a little bit different, okay, you guys? So for inviting, this is where it gets a little bit more personal, okay, where we have to give room for the coach to be a little bit more, I guess, responsive to what their markets look like, but we do teach best practices. So, for example, in the inviting system, we just put out last week an updated inviting process that we want coaches to look at and adopt. And it's a real simple step-by-step approach of helping people move through the inviting process to the point where they just make a decision to buy a challenge pack. Now, the only thing that's missing in that to make it a complete system is your addition of saying something like, do 3 of these a day. Follow up with 4 people every single day, or whatever you add to do, okay? So if you take that inviting process and you combine it with the business activity tracker, now you've got an inviting system that you can use. So if you don't have one, that's where you want to go. If you want to create your own, giddy up, all right? And then prospecting. Prospecting, honestly, you guys, is the one thing right now that we don't really have any corporate-driven system support for. But aside from just trying to give good advice, part of the reason why, again, is because different people attract people in different ways, social media and different social groups, whatever it happens to be. But we're looking at ways to kind of help that as well, because expanding your network, honestly, is a really, really key important system. In the meantime, you can create that, or maybe you probably already have that. How do you teach coaches to add people to their network? How many people should they be adding every day? What do they do to be able to be engaging there? And the funny thing is, you guys, we talk about the same thing. Sometimes we just give it different names, right? So some people will call it a power hour. What are they doing the power hour? They're usually doing something around these systems, right? Or they'll say, I'm doing the powers of 3 or whatever. They're all systematic. What I'm trying to help you see now is the leader is kind of getting a more, I guess, a greater appreciation or understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, so that you can be better at duplicating it. So you can be better at teaching that to people and understanding what it should look like and what it shouldn't look like, okay? So if you have any questions about, especially those like the systems that we've got in place, First 30, Coach Basics, the challenge groups, those kind of pieces, you guys, those are great questions for us, for me or for Sydney down the road if you want to. I'm gonna keep going here a little bit, okay? So I just talked about First 30 Coach Basics. I kind of got ahead of myself in that regard. So, all right, so I'm getting close to the end of my training here, and I don't want to. I'm going to end with a quick story for you, but I want to wrap this up first this way. So if I'm you, and I just got done getting verbally thrown up on by me, if I'm sitting where you're sitting, and I'm like, okay, I have got all these notes, and I'm not sure I quite understood everything the guy said. Some of it made sense, some of it didn't, and I don't agree with all of it, but I agree with some of it. Whatever you're at, here's what I'm going to ask you to do, okay? Pick a couple things and start, okay? Start. Do something about it. Look, the purpose of this call today was to give you a context around the journey of elite, so that you can all know that you're doing just fine. As long as you're on the course still fighting, you're doing great, okay? The second thing was to talk specifically about duplication. Why? Because this is an area at this stage of the business that tends to be the most frustrating for coaches because they can't control it. And because they can't control it, they tend to waste a lot of emotional energy on it. And it's wasted energy. It's draining to you. Okay, so we want to focus on the things that we can control. One of the things that we can control that will help our coaches, that's not everything, but one of the key ones is duplication. Okay, when we talk about duplication, I can control what I duplicate. Why? Because I don't duplicate people, I duplicate systems. When I look at my business, I can take a quick inventory. Do I have systems in place for those 4 key areas of expanding our network, expanding our network, inviting, running effective challenge groups, and then onboarding? Do I have systems in place? But if not, that's a great opportunity. Now, does that mean you need to take 4 months, go think about it, go spend thousands of dollars on Tony Robbins training and everything? No. Chances are you've already belonged to a team that has some great systems. You might just adopt those if you haven't already. Or you can go on this thing called the interwebs. Go to Google. Just look it up. There's lots of stuff out there giving you places to start. The system will refine itself and become more and more yours the longer you use it. But the important thing is that you have a system. Now, how can I tell if the system's working? I look not at what my PS coaches, I'm telling to them, I look at what their PS coaches are doing. That will tell me if I'm duplicating it effectively. That will tell you if I'm duplicating the systems effectively, okay? And so, and the company comes along the way with these support pieces. So take 2 or 3 of those things that stood out to you and start there. Start on those things. Don't let the totality of it, if you're coming and going, man, I got so much work to do, don't let that keep you from starting. Take 2 or 3 things and start there. It's an amazing thing for me. One of the things that I love about what I get to do, okay? It was funny, about 10 years ago, I woke up one day and I was like, wow, I guess I'm a network marketing professional. Like, I never thought about that. I never woke up in my life and was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be work for network marketing companies my whole life. I got here and I woke up one day and I realized it and I asked myself why, and the answer was simple, because I love working with people like you guys. You guys are a unique bunch of people. This isn't always easy, okay? It requires commitment. It requires drive. But that's also a reason why the rewards are so great when you make it happen for yourself, because you're willing to do that. And I enjoy associating with people like this. Whenever it comes to doing big things in your life, or in your business, like Elite, the funny thing is you have to, the element of belief, as cheesy as it sounds, is really, really important, because you're creating something, you're doing something for the very first time. And often people around you, they don't see it. They can't see it because it hasn't been done yet, right? They'll believe it after you do it. They'll believe you can do it again because you already did it once. But the first time you're going for it, they can't see it. And so you're really the one that has to hold on to that belief in yourself, belief in the process, belief in the partners and the people that you've surrounded yourself with. You have to hold on to that belief. You have to cherish that belief, because it just takes that one time you give yourself permission to believe in yourself can change your life. Okay, I use the example of my wife. Okay, so this is my wife. Her name's Katie. I married way above my stature in life. I like to tell people my wife's like the Yankees and I'm like some high school baseball team in the middle of nowhere. I married up and I'm totally fine with that, just in case you're wondering. But how my wife and I met is kind of an interesting story. So we met for the first time when we were missionaries for a church over in Spain, and we were friends. And I remember the first time I saw my wife, I was like, oh my gosh, that woman is beautiful. And the second thought of my mind after how beautiful I thought she was this statement. I'll never forget it. Kim, girls like that have nothing to do with guys like you. And it rung so true to me. And so the first time I saw her, I didn't say anything to her. And then I didn't see her again for like 4 months, 5 months. And then we had the opportunity to see each other on a couple times a week basis. And we started to become friends. And I remember how excited I was to just be her friend. Like, holy cow, this hot babe just let me in her orbit. And usually hot babes don't let me in their orbit. So I'm really, really excited about this, okay? And it sounds really kind of silly, and I'm not meaning it self-deprecating, but that's really how I felt. I was so happy that we were friends. And I was so, it meant so much to me because, again, girls like that usually don't have a lot to do with guys like me. Well, we came home from Spain. She came home about 4 or 5 months before I did, and I came home, and my friend one day, his name was Sam, was trying to get me to find a date for the weekend. He had a date. He didn't want to go by himself. And I was just feeling really unmotivated to try to call up a girl. I'd been in Spain for a couple of years. I didn't really know anybody. And so he comes in, he's over at my house, and he's just pestering me to call somebody, just random person from high school that I haven't talked to in 2 years and see if they want to go on a date. So he has to go by himself. And I'm telling him no, and I'm telling him no. And in the course of the conversation, he says something, and I start telling him a story about this time I had in Spain. And I wanted to show him a picture. Now, this is going to date me. So to show him the picture, I went and got a picture album. I know some of you are too young, you don't know what those are, but you used to have to actually print out pictures, and you would put them in books instead of just having them on your phone that you could show people, okay? And so I went to go get the picture album to show him this picture. And I'm flipping through the pages looking for the picture, and I'll never forget, it was sitting right on my lap right here. And as I turned a page, all of a sudden his hand, let me just actually stop sharing his hand. All of a sudden his hand shot across my field of vision and pointed at a picture. And I kind of folded the page back, and this guy, he's like a hawk vision or something. He just saw Katie's face. He's pointing right at her, and he says to me, he goes, "Who is that, and when can I meet her?" Because he considered himself quite the ladies' man. And I said, "Her name's Katie." And I said, "Actually, I'm going to be seeing her in 2 days." I said, there's like a little get-together for people that were in Spain as missionaries, and we're going to see each other in a couple days. At which point, he leans over to me, and he just punches me in the arm as hard as he can, as only guys will do. And he's like, "You idiot. You need to ask her on the date." And the second he says that to me, that same statement came to my head. "Kim, girls like that don't date guys like you." And I said, "Sam, dude, she's out of my league." I said, "I'm not going to ask her." I said, "We're friends, and I don't want to screw that up. I'm glad to be your friend, and I don't want things to get weird if I ask her out on a date and all this kind of stuff." Okay. And we kind of went back and forth for a second with him trying to convince me, and finally he looked at me and he said, "Kim, if you don't ask her out, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life." Okay, which was a pretty weird statement for him to make at that standpoint. Okay, at that point. But I'm glad he did, and I'll tell you why. So I went to this party, and I remember I got to the party, and I was really nervous. I wasn't sure. I was maybe kind of secretly hoping she wasn't going to show up, but after about 15 minutes after I got there, I see her walk in the front door, and butterflies start coming in my stomach, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not asking her out." Da, 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 da. And after a few minutes, she sees me from across the room, and she comes over, and we just start talking. And that was the thing about Katie and I, is Katie and I could always talk, and we could just visit. And it was really easy to talk to her. And so even though we hadn't seen each other for about 5 months, we sat down and just started talking about everything, anything. Conversation came really, really easy when I would talk with her. And we sat there for almost an hour and a half on this mantle of this fireplace and just talked. And the thing kept coming into my mind: ask her out. And I'm like, "No. Girls like that don't date guys like me. Like, I don't want to screw this up. I love the fact that we're friends. She's so cool." And I've had that thing before, right, where you kind of like a girl and you say some stuff, and then it's weird, and then she says that you're just like my brother, and then I'm like, "Wow, that's weird. You kiss your brother?" Because that's weird. I don't know. And all these, anyway. And so all this, and I'm like, I don't want this to get weird. I don't want this to get messed up. And so anyway, an hour and a half goes by, and we're done talking. And the party's starting to wrap up a little bit. People have left, and we're kind of like one of the last couple people that are there. And she kind of makes a statement: "Oh, we better get out of here. It looks like they're shutting everything down." I was like, "Yeah." And I got that thought again: ask her out. "No, I'm not going to do it." And then all of a sudden, Sam's words come into my mind. And as Katie turns around and she starts walking away, I hear Sam's mind in my mind say, "If you don't ask her out, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life." And so in the most unsophisticated, unsmooth way that would be possible, I just blurted out, "You want to go out Saturday?" No context, just blip. And the second it came out of my mouth, she turned around, and I was like, "Oh, crap, what have I done?" And so before she even says anything, I'm just like, you know what, never mind. It's not a big deal. I know you got stuff going on. Da, 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 da. And she's like, well, what did you say? I said, no, my friend, he's got a date. He wants me to get a date, but I don't have anyone. I thought maybe you want to go, but I don't want to. And I'm doing what a lot of times you coaches do when you get someone that's kind of interested, but you want to make sure that they're really, really not knowing that don't think that you're trying to force it on them. So you're trying to almost talk them out of buying it to make sure that if they do buy it, they knew that you didn't want them. We weren't trying to force them to buy it. You guys know what I'm talking about. And so she's like, well, no, I'd like to go. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I know you talked about how you got something with your roommates and stuff. I get it. And she's like, no, I'd like to go. And I was like, it's okay. And then she said one more time, the third time, hey, Kim, it's okay. I'd like to go. And at that point, a little voice in my head said, shut the freak up, moron. She just said yes. And I'm like, okay, I'll see you Saturday. And I walked out of there, and I was scared to death because I was like, did I just mess up this friendship? But I was also excited because she said yes. Maybe girls like that do date guys like me. And we went on our first date, and what I found was that same ease that we've always had, just kind of being around each other, kept going. And we dated for about 8 months, and got engaged and got married. And I look at this girl, and I think about what my life is right now. And I think about the memories. And I think about everything that I hold dear, my children, the experiences, the memories that I've got with them, that I get to go home and they're there, and everything that has come to be me, who I am, what I value most, everything that just some of these pictures on the screen kind of start to represent. Everything hinged on that one moment when I had the courage to just believe for just a second that maybe a girl like that would date a guy like me. And it wasn't pretty and it wasn't smooth, but I just went for it. I just tried. I can't imagine what my life would be like today had I missed that opportunity. Had I missed not opening my mouth, had I not believed in myself. Now look, I'm not saying Elite's going to change your life like my wife changed mine, but I think the principle still applies. The principle of believing in yourself, because you don't know what the future will be. You don't know what future you are creating for yourself when you choose to believe in yourself. In this context, you don't know what that impact will be. You don't know what the impact will be. I mean, what you're missing out on if you give up on yourself, if you let those headwinds stop you, if you get to mile 18 and you walk off the course. You know, in my experience, the things of greatest value in life are won. They're won through our efforts and our energy and what we do, and they're hard. They're supposed to be hard. That's why they're valuable. And so breaking that down to Elite, Elite is going to be challenging. It's going to be tough. Why? Because it's a big prize. It's going to make you grow. And if you believe in yourself enough to take a chance on yourself, to create a future for yourself that will spring from that decision to believe, how cool is that? Okay, what can that be like? So my invitation is that as you go through this, as you look at the trainings, you look at the different pieces, you look at all the numbers, start applying the things we talked about, but above all, make a commitment to yourself to stay on the course. Okay, you guys? All right, Sydney. I'm like 15 minutes over time, but I like to blab.
That was so good. Every time I listen to you talk, I'm bawling and I'm laughing all at the same time. So thank you so much. We really appreciate having you on this call. Thanks, guys, for being here, and we'll see everyone next week.
And if anyone has any questions they want to ask me that I can get a chance to, just message me on Facebook or send it to Sydney. She'll get it to me.
Yeah, sounds perfect. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.